Welcome to Talking Heads on USA Global TV, starring the one and only wonderful Dr. Jacqueline. It's a prestigious place where world-class influencers and experts meet, and where you'll find the most trusted advisors and coaches for all things in life and business. Visit usaglobaltv.com to sign up for our newsletter, get the value you need, and be first in line to learn about events and giveaways and other valuable content. Connect with us. Email Dr. Jacqueline at usaglobaltv.com to talk about how you can become part of USA Global TV. That's USA Global TV, where the doctor is always in.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to USA Global TV and Radio. I'm Dr. Jacqueline Kerbeck, and our show today is Talking Heads. And for those of you who are wondering, what is a talking head and what is this show all about? We have a series of shows that are led by our expert panelists who are talking heads. They come from all over the world to share their knowledge and their expertise in their own 30-minute show. Today's expert talking head is red.olaughlin. Let's welcome him. Hi, Red.
Hi, Dr. Jacqueline. Good to see you again. It's been a while.
It has been about 7 minutes. It's good to see you again as well. Red, this topic is so important, how to publish your book for free. So many people are excited about this, and I'm going to let you get to it. I'm going to go backstage and I'll produce the show. You let me know when you need your slide deck.
Okay, I'll do a very brief introduction and then we'll jump into the slides and I'll let you know and we'll go through that and hopefully have time at the end and technically speaking, from my perspective, the ability to actually show some of these things in action. But we'll make it happen one way or the other.
Sounds good. Have a great show.
Thank you very much, Doctor. Hi, red.olaughlin here. This particular segment on Talking Heads is how to write and publish your book for free. That means free, meaning no dollars out of your pocket, no money spent. And I will be talking about certain things that, you can spend money on, like editing or websites or things, but we're not talking about that part. That's supplemental to the actual writing and publishing. So we're going to talk about what does it take to actually write that book and then get it published so you have something in your hands that you can say, hey, I'm a published author. Here's my book. That's what we're doing. So the goal of this thing is to get you an ebook on Amazon, on Kindle, and a paperback on Amazon. That's what we're talking about here today when I talk about publishing. If you want an audiobook, you want a hardback book, different animals, that's not what we're talking about right now. So with that being said, let's go ahead and jump into the first slide today. So our concerns today that I'm talking about from a publishing perspective is that your manuscript is written, you're done with it, but now it needs to be edited and proofed. It needs to be fully formatted. We're going to talk about the author account. I plan to lead you through that entire process, and then post-publishing. What are the things? In fact, next week, we're going to talk a lot about post-publishing. But today, I'll just kind of mention a few things. So let's go to the next slide, please. Publishing concerns. When you talk about your book, it's finally done. You need to edit it. If you finished your book yesterday and you go back in and read whatever you wrote, chances are your brain is still attuned to what you actually put in that book, and which means that you can read something and it's not going to, you're going to miss errors. It's happened to me numerous times. I come back a couple, 3 or 4 days later, I find stuff why didn't I catch that earlier? I come back 2 weeks later and it's like whatever was in my brain that was preventing me from seeing that, now it's there. My wife does all of my proofreading. I publish almost every single day on LinkedIn and other places, my website. And she catches stuff that I've run through various Grammarly checkers and other things. And I think it's a pretty good deal. I read through it. A lot of times I'll have it read back to me. I miss stuff and she catches it. So just because it's edited and proofed doesn't mean that it's really ready to go. So what do we talk about editing? For the most part, I'm talking about line or copy editing. I am not talking about developmental editing. You're done with your book. A developmental editor would help you with the character development, the locations, the conversations. We're not talking about that. We're talking about your book is done. Is it spelling, diction, those kinds of things? We want to make sure that's as correct as possible. Now you put it into Amazon and they're going to do a spell checker on you and they're going to come back and say you got 8 words misspelled. And you can go in there and double check and make sure that the misspelling is really the intention that you had. So you do have a little bit. But if you have 181 spelling errors, they're not going to publish the book. So there's some issues there. Microsoft Word, if you're using Microsoft Word as a tool, there is a function called readback. In fact, I think even Microsoft Windows has that same tool. And the beauty, I think, on Windows, you can change the accent of the person, whether it's a male or a female or somebody from Ireland or wherever. But regardless, you can have whatever you have written read back to you. And as you're reading, as it's being read back, it's actually going to have a little yellow cursor that goes over each word. So you can not only see and hear at the same time what's being said. I like that a lot because it tells me exactly, did I say what I meant to say? Because now I can see it, but more importantly, I can hear it. That is a big, big, big plus. After you get everything else done, use the readback function as one of your last proofing sessions. I mentioned resting a minute ago. If you want to have your book published tomorrow and you just finished it today, I'm not going to say you can't do it. You can obviously do it. That's easy to do. But sometimes it helps to have a little bit of time between that last version and the one that you're ready to publish. One hint or one tip that I'll give you is every single time you save your document, save it with a different name. And I put the dates on all of mine. So if I have a document that I do today, it would be whatever the title is at 14 April 22. Now, if I revise that later on today, it's going to be 14 April 22, capital A, and then B and C, depending on how many times I revise it. Why? Because now you have a saved document of everything that was in there from whatever day. So if something happens and you need to go back because I pushed the wrong button and I erased the rest of the doc, that happens. Make sure you have copies saved, and every time I make a change, I change the name of the document. And it never hurts to have other people read your documents. I mentioned a while back that I have editing parties at my house, and I'll have friends come over and they will pick up random copies of my chapters with a red pen and a clipboard, and they'll migrate to various parts of the house. And for about an hour, all they do is read and mark in red. I write on technical subjects, and I like to make sure that it's easily understood. So I would say, you come across something you really don't understand, circle it. The whole paragraph, whatever it is, circle it. I'll go back, take their comments, and when you get a dozen or 2 dozen sets of eyes looking at something, that information is very, very valuable. So that might be a way of doing it. Now, you may end up spending a couple bucks out of your pocket for desserts or some little nifty thing to have. I usually have wine and cheese, and we'll have a half hour social intercourse before we start the deal, and then an hour of just actual isolation. Proofreading. My wife is my proofreader. There are a lot of proofreaders out there. If you have somebody who's willing to do it for free, and that's the big issue, free. Can we get it done at no money out of your pocket? Go for it. And that's a big deal, because that final proofreading, once you're done, that book is ready to save in the format that you need and to publish. Next slide, please, Dr. Jacqueline. Okay, it needs to be fully formatted. What do we mean by fully formatted? The manuscript's done. Well, sometimes you have a Word document, it's 8.5 by 11. What size do you want? Well, 6 by 9 is a common size for a lot of nonfiction books. And that's the genre that I write in. That's the genre that I publish for most of my authors. Sometimes they want a little bit larger book, but most of the time everybody settles on 6 by 9, sometimes slightly smaller, sometimes slightly larger. But that manuscript, when you have it on 8.5 by 11, changes the minute you go to 6 by 9. And so you have to go back in there and make sure that you're fully formatted to whatever the actual size of the book is. So let's go for a moment until we say 6 by 9. So you take an 8.5 by 11, you go in there and you format it in Word to 6 by 9, go back in there and double check to make sure that everything is the way you want it to look. There are templates for that. CreateSpace was the company that used to do paperbacks up till about 2 years ago, just about the beginning part of COVID. And you use Kindle Direct Publishing for the ebook. You use CreateSpace for the paperback. And there are a lot of good data, a lot of templates out there on the CreateSpace platform. So if you go into CreateSpace templates and you see 6 by 9, you can actually take and cut and paste each chapter into the document that the template is set up for. And the template allows you now to have the front matter, that information from the title page all the way through the end of the table of contents, to be formatted with a couple different things. Number one, You can have the title of your book on the left-hand side of the page, and you can have your name on the right-hand side of the page above the text where it's called a header. You can also have the Arabic numbers at the bottom converted into Roman numerals for that first part of the book. So you get down to, say, Roman numeral 8 for the end of your table of contents. Now, when you get to the very first part of your book, the introduction, that's going to be chapter number 1. However, let me warn you right now that convention says that when I'm looking at a book, and I guess as I'm looking at the screen, the right-hand side of your book is always going to be an odd number page, always. That's the way the convention is set up. Chapters typically go 1/3 the way down the page. So you have, as you're looking at the book, an even number on my left-hand side, an odd number on my right-hand side. Chapters are always going to start on odd number pages. So if your end of your chapter ends on an even number page, good. That's the end of that chapter. There's the beginning of the next chapter. Everything's fine. If not, you need to add in a blank page so that you actually start that page with a blank one, with an odd numbered page. I like to have my page numbers at the bottom right-hand side, but those options are available. Widows and orphans, those are those 1 or 2 or 3 words that end up at the bottom of the page all by themselves where they don't belong. Maybe it might be a subtitle that needs to go up at the beginning of the next page, or maybe 2 or 3 words at the top of the next page all by themselves. And you can go back into the last paragraph and say, can I change some of the wording in that paragraph so that it sucks those 2 or 3 words back into it? Or maybe what I want to do is change the font size of that particular page by a half number. Those go from 12 to 11.5. And yes, you can have 0.5s in the fonts. Or maybe what you might want to do is slightly change that page's margin on the outside or top or bottom. It's not going to be noticeable anywhere else except on that page, but there are a lot of options for getting rid of those 2 or 3 words at the top of the next page sitting there all by themselves. They're called widows and orphans. Let's see, chapter 1/3 of the way. Convention says the chapters start 1/3 of the way down your page. Do you have to? No. Do you have to have the chapter start on odd number pages? No. I just finished a book for a gentleman. He had a 6-month honeymoon back in 1964. We started out with over 800 pages. We ended up with 466, and his pages started immediately next to each other. We could not afford to have extra white pages in a book with 100 chapters. It's just one of those things you got to look at. So again, it's convention says that, but again, your book dictates what you really and truly want. May we go to the next slide, Dr. Jacqueline? Okay, white space. Sometimes you need to have the white space on the page, the even numbered page, so that your next chapter starts on an odd numbered page. That's convention. That's generally good. But you don't want to have 4 or 5 pages unless I just finished a cookbook, literally just published it this last couple of weeks. And she wanted to have note pages at the end of each chapter. So she'd have notes at the top of a couple of white pages all by themselves so that people could actually write in her book that whatever they wanted to do to tweak that recipe a little bit. So there's sometimes when white pages mean something to a particular kind of book. But generally speaking, you want to minimize white space. So as soon as you're done with your paperback book, go back in and remove all of the extra white space, because when you get to that ebook, you don't want to have blank pages, and that's what happens on the ebook. So when I get finished with the paperback book formatting, I'll take and literally go in there and wipe out all of my extra white space that I have in the book. Now that becomes an ebook, and it works out very, very nicely that way. So I find it so much easier to start with the paperback and then end up with the ebook. It doesn't really matter which is more comfortable. If you're in a hurry, the ebook is probably a little faster way of going. Gutter margin, book size. Okay, book size, we talked about 6x9. It also depends on how many pages you have. If 800 pages, maybe a 6x9 is not the right size. The book that we started out at 6x9 with over 800 pages, we settled on a 7x10. We eliminated a lot of pages and we got it down to 466. Gutter margin. This is something you need to be aware of. If you have a 400-page book, the gutter margin is going to be different than a 150-page book. Go into Google. Google and YouTube are your 2 best friends when you're writing books, publishing. There is so much information out there. They can tell you how to do it. They can show you how to do it. Unbelievable amount of information. Everything I'm telling you right now is available. I did I wouldn't say exhaustive research. I know a lot of stuff that I wanted to say, but I always go back in and prepare myself. Well, is there something new out there that I don't know? Is there something that I'm leaving out? Is something I worked with 3 or 4 years ago that I'm not considering today? And I go back there and I read through things. Oh, yeah. Okay, fine. And I'll add that in. So use YouTube, especially when you don't know how to do something. But the gutter margin, it's going to say you need this gutter margin, a margin on top, around the bottom and side. This is what you have to make the book look presentable. But more importantly, the book has to be published, and that physical publishing has to have certain allowances for the gutter, the middle part of the book, and around the edges. If it's not there, Amazon's going to reject it. Okay, font size and type. My audience are baby boomers. My font size is generally a 16. I've had many people tell me they really appreciate the book being a larger font because they can read it more easily. Who is your audience? Make the font size and the type of your size set up for that audience. So when you're doing your book, you may start out with Times New Roman 12 because that's what you always use, but maybe you need to shift to something else. For about the last 6-8 months, I've been using Roboto, Roboto, and instead of the Times New Roman 16, I use Roboto 16. But those are the things that looks good for you, what looks good for the printing, and there's so many different fonts out there for books that you may have it on your Microsoft Word, you may not. They're available, but we're trying to do everything free, so use something that's available. Now we have serif and sans serif. And if you look at the actual type that I have there, if you notice at the bottom of some of the numbers, there's a little line across the bottom, or there's a little line coming off the F, or what. That's a serif. That means just a little bit extra decoration. That's fine for a lot of reading. But as you're looking, you see where I have publishing concerns there at the top, you don't have those little extra lines underneath the N or the R or anything. That's a sans serif kind of print. So when you're looking at titles, generally speaking, sans serif. Is it important? Not really. But if you want convention-wise, yeah, be consistent. Now, headers and footers, you can insert whatever you want, but sometimes they don't allow you to put the header in there as the title of the book only. But if you want to have your name up there on one side and the header on the other, again, YouTube is your friend. If you want to have Arabic numbers starting in chapter 1 on the right-hand side at the rest of the document, your content, and you want to have Roman numerals in the front, again, YouTube will tell you exactly how to do that. It's a very simple operation in Microsoft Word, and I recommend if you don't know how to do it, experiment a little bit, make some errors, use it on a document that doesn't make any, you don't worry about, because that way you can make your errors and just start right back over again. And again, I use the headings, style sheets for my table of contents. So when I'm developing a table of contents and I'm an 8.5 by 11, and it says chapter 3 is on page 11, that's fine. But when I change it to a 6 by 9 format, chapter 3 now may be on page 28, that it automatically generates the table of contents for you. You don't have to worry about going in and putting in ... page 11. Use style sheets. If you don't know how to do it, YouTube, it's going to tell you. And again, when you change the size of the document, you change anything in there whatsoever, you decide to add a new chapter in the middle, it's going to take care of everything. Now, when you go in and you update the table of contents, you get a new one, everything's going to be updated. You want to change from your ebook, from your physical book with page numbers to an ebook that has no page numbers. Everything is a reference, a hot link. Then you have to use a slightly different modification on the table of contents. You get rid of the page numbers, you go to hot links, click on that one, boom. It's magic. It all occurs instantly. So now all of a sudden, the table of contents just has hot links. You click on chapter, whichever one you like. Now, I will tell you that avoid chapter 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, because when somebody's looking at your book to decide to buy it, if you don't have something that tells you what the name of that chapter is, and they have to, what's in chapter 3, they don't know. Be curious. Try to figure out something that will suck in, that will get attention, that will be that hook that gets somebody, let me go over and take a look at chapter 3. That sounds kind of interesting. So those are things that you can start doing as you're putting this thing together. And regardless of what happens, consistently. Consistency is needed. So if you have a font in the beginning of the book, it should be the same size at the end. If you have margins at the beginning of the book, it should be the same size in the end. Everything should be consistent in there. Photos and illustrations, they are easy to add. Again, I use royalty-free stuff. I never go anything where I have to pay. It's either mine that I own, that I've done myself, an illustration that somebody has given to me. But again, do not pay for something you don't have to have. Now, Fiverr.com, Five, like the word five, rr.com. They'll charge you anywhere from $5 to $50, depending on what you want done with covers and things like that. But we're going to talk about covers very quickly. But your black and white and your color. Now, in your book, unless you want color, which is going to be a little bit more expensive, and there's two different kinds of color in a paperback. You have one with a high quality color, and I had a client very recently where he wanted color, was not acceptable anything else, and the high quality it bumped the price up over $20 a book. But we went down and we went to a lower quality color. Still looks good. There was nothing wrong with the actual appearance, but the amount of ink to actually print it and the contrast and everything around it says that I could use this color, and I think it ended up about $7.51 a book versus $20 and some change. So there are a couple of different options. The cookbook that I had just done for somebody, we decided to leave it in color because it made sense for the foods that she was showing. But in general, when you have a paperback and you have a color photo, it's going to show up as black and white. Let's see, what do I use? I'm trying to think of what is the actual software. I will think of it in just a second. Let me see if I happen to have it over here on the side. IRFANView, that's what it is. Let me get back to my StreamYard presentation. IRFANView, 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 IRFANVIEW. I find is an excellent photo manipulation tool. What I do on my color photos is I take the contrast and I make them really weird. I take strange oranges and black, whatever is in the actual color, I'll take and accentuate that so that now when I convert that to a gray image, black and white, you're going to see the contrast stands out because that bright orange, where it was a muted orange earlier, has a really crisp edge to it. So there's a lot of things you can do to make your black and white images from color stand out and just really speak to the audience. But again, that's one of those things that as you need help on that one, YouTube is a great source. Let's jump to the next one, please, Dr. Jacqueline. A lot of times we end up with, when we look at a chapter, usually the first line's indented a ½ inch. Usually you have both sides of the paragraph justified. And when you do that, sometimes you end up with this little big white spaces in between words because you're trying to take 3 words across the entire bottom. And so you go back up there and, well, if I hyphenate here and if I hyphenate there, it'll kind of make everything look right. Hyphens are not a problem. Too many of them are a problem. So look at what you have, what can be changed to make sense. It's going to happen to everybody when you use justification because it's just one of those things that pops up. But there are little ways around that, and changing 1 or 2 things in the book, adding an extra word, cutting something back. Those are things you can do as you're looking at, most of the time I publish books, I never have a hyphen in them. But sometimes because of the weirdness of having something there with that, a lot of space in between 2 or 3 words, I may have to go back in and actually hyphenate something to make things look right. But I have a tendency to just minimize as best I can any hyphenation. It's just one of those conventions that works. Hot links. In ebooks, they're all going to work. On your physical book, they're just there for information. But if you don't have your link activated, and there's a way when you put a link in, you do an insert, and you put link, and you can go in there and put actually the website, or you can put your email. But there's a lot of things you can do. If you don't know how to do it, YouTube. Those are things that help you. But make sure your hot links are there. I think I just published a book with about 400 hot links in it. It was a really long book. I have to go in there and make sure every single hot link actually goes to the page that's there. I had a couple that didn't go there. One was out of date. I had to go back to the author. He ended up giving a new page, new link, because that link was no longer active. So when your book is published, they're active. After the book's published, things change. But at least you knew everything was 100% accurate when you left that book. So the hot links is one of those last minute checks on your ebook that you need to have done. Copyright, let's say you started your book 2 years ago, 2020. That was when your intellectual material started to form. That's the copyright you should put on there, not because the book is published in 2022, but the year you actually started writing your book. Now you may say, well, I finished the book in 2021. Okay, fine, let's use 2021. Not a problem. But that copyright is not what as of today, but it's when you actually had the book almost nearly finished. You have a choice of putting in your publishing company. Let's say your name is Jane Doe. there is no problem. You're publishing the book. It's yours. If you have an LLC or corporation, you want to publish in that name, fine. If you want to put just Jane Doe Publishing Company, do that. Not a problem, because you're self-publishing. It's not costing you anything to do it. That's where you do it. And you do that in your author account. Now, if you're writing a book, like I write on health and wellness, I have to put disclaimers in there that all my material is educational. I cannot tell people, take this, do this, don't do that. That's a major legal risk for me. I have to. So depending on what you have, look at whether you need a disclaimer for the information you're putting out there. You may be writing a book on financial advice. Again, disclaimers are probably really needed for that kind of book. Covers. We're talking here everything free. Inside kdp.amazon.com, kdp.amazon.com. As you get to that part of the book, there is a place in there that's called Cover Creator. Cover Creator will actually create a cover for you. So you go in there and you have an option of this. So what you need is you need to have your title in your author page. You need to have your subtitle in your author account. That is pulled up automatically into there. You take, and now on the back part of the cover, you're going to have a bio photo. So you need to have that available someplace so you can insert it into the back cover of your book. You want to have a little author bio. I'm telling people 2 to 3 sentences, about 100 words thereabouts. And that's going to tell somebody about the author. Generally speaking, when somebody goes into a bookstore or they find something online, the general mode of operation is they walk by, they see something on the bookshelf. The title captures them, something, the artwork on the front, doesn't matter. They're captured by the book for a brief moment. They'll go over and they'll pick it up and they'll look at it. That may capture their attention for 7 to 8 seconds because they're reading the headlines or looking at the cover art. And if they like the book, they're going to turn it over to the back and they're going to read a little bit about the author and a little bit about the description of the book. If there's some testimonials there, they may read those too. But that's going to get them to do one of 2 things: put the book back on the shelf or open the book to the table of contents. I always open the book to the copyright because I want to make sure the information inside is relevant. I don't want to pick up something on health and wellness from 1997. I want to have something on health and wellness from at least the last 2 years. So if I'm looking at something for my deal, I want to know what is the copyright. Now, if I'm looking at a spy thriller, it may have been something that was written back in 1997. Maybe I've already read it, and chances are I don't need to buy it again because I've already read it. So I always look at the copyright date, but look at the table of contents and go down the table of contents. And if you capture them with your chapter titles, they may go over to chapter 7 and thumb over to page 81 and say, and scan a little bit of that book. If they do that, they've already spent 7, 8 seconds on the front page, maybe 15 seconds on the back cover. Now they spend a little bit of time on the table of contents. They may spend 40 seconds thumbing through your book once they get to the table of contents. They've had your book in their hands now for almost a minute. If they like what they see, they're going to keep it. If they don't, they're going to put it back on the shelf. But that's generally what happens. So the chapter titles are very, very important. The disclaimer is important. The cover is important. Everything there is important. So that title page, what I tell people to do is go look at who is in the categories that you're in. What do their covers look like? The top 10, the top 20 authors. What are their covers like? If they're all text, yours should be all text. If they're all with their author's photo on the front, maybe that's the way yours should go, because you want to have your book look like theirs. Ideally, you wrote the book for a reason. You want to add value to the world out there. So that's what you want to do. You want to have something that's going to do that. That cover creator is going to allow you a lot of leeway on what you can do. Colors, fonts, everything. Don't create your own cover using fonts that you get out of Microsoft Word, because the font that's on a text is not going to be acceptable for a font on a cover. The fonts on the covers are going to be tall and thin. The fonts inside your book are going to be totally different. So when you shrink that book down to a table, to a postage stamp size, and still want to be able to read it, you can't read that with content kinds of things. Dr. Jacqueline, I see we're at 30 minutes. Let's go to the next slide. I think we're getting close here toward the end. Other things real quick. I was going to show you an author account today. I think we'll probably cover that next week. Title and subtitle are so important. The title may not necessarily be as important. It's going to be pretty indicative of what the book is about. You cannot copyright titles. You find a title you like in somebody else, steal it shamelessly. It's not a problem. They can't copyright a title. Subtitles are where you find the keywords. People trying to find your book off of Google, they have no idea who you are. So make sure that you have the subtitle and everything there the way you want it. Description, again, you need to have a description for the back cover, 2 or 3 sentences. You can go 2, 3, 4 paragraphs easily for the description on the inside of Amazon. When they pull it up on the Amazon website, that description should be more lengthy than it is on the outside. Categories, that in your author account, you have a choice of what categories you're in. Do a real good search of the categories that accurately define your book, because you want to be honest with people. This is what the book is about. But then you can also go into those same categories and see who are the best sellers. What are their books? What do they charge for their books? How big are they? How many pages? What do their covers look like? What's in their table of contents? Are they covering stuff that you're not? What value do you think they're offering that's different than yours? What can you offer in value that they don't even have in their books? That's why the categories are so important. Same thing with keywords. You can put 7 keywords in. Now, this doesn't mean that you can't go back after you publish your book 2 weeks later and change categories. Yes, you can do that. You can change keywords anytime you want. That's the joy of having your own author account and access to it. You can change the prices anytime you want. You want to have a sale next week? Change the price and tell the world. Once you get everything done and you have all this price, the pricing is the very last thing you do before you hit the publish button. But once you get the categories and the keywords, you upload your document. And this is under the formats there. The format for a paperback is going to be PDF. Yes, you can put it in as a .docx, but for you want to have consistency so there's no problems with the printer actually physically printing your book, go with the PDF. It's easy to save the document as a PDF. If you have a problem on that, again, it's in Microsoft Word. You just save it as a PDF. And I take on my documents and actually put PDF in the title, so it's easy to find. Even though the little icon in front is there, the price, I mean, the name of the document says PDF. So I take a PDF and I put it into the Amazon paperback, and that's what it's going to take. And it's going to run the cover and the contents against each other. Do they fit? If I get a cover from somebody else and I put that in, I upload it, it's going to check, does this size book match that JPEG image on the cover? Now, on the JPEG image for the ebooks is going to be a little bit different than having your PDF version. If you're getting a version of a book from somebody else that they're doing for free, you're going to have the front page, the spine, and the back page. It's all going to be laid out in a big PDF format. It's going to overlap the size of your book by a 1/4 inch. That's going to be the actual document. Now, inside KDP Amazon, they create that for you for free. So when you're putting the book together, you should not have a problem if you're doing it. But if you actually have a freebie from somebody and you have a problem, you may have to go back to that person and say, hey, here's what the error message says. Can you fix it? But if you use the cover creator within kdpamazon.com, then that's fine. You put it through the filter and it's going to give you a thumbs up or a thumbs down. If it gives you a thumbs down, you got to go fix something. Sometimes they'll give you, yeah, the book's okay. Here's some problems we found, but we're going to correct them ourselves. That's fine. But I always, every single time, I go every single page, I look at them, because what I put in is not necessarily what you see is what you get. I page through every single one, ebook and physical book, to make sure that exact one. And on the paperback, you're going to see both pages at the same time, both pages. So you just click on through. That is extremely important. You want to put out a good quality product. Look at that individual and make sure it looks, that's what I want. That's what it's going to look like when it's printed. The same thing with the ebook. Now, the ebook, as I mentioned earlier, no extra white pages, white stuff on the page. But when you save it, you're going to save it as a .epub. Yes, you can put it in there as a .docx, but you lose a lot of things with regard to being able to have a table of contents that's clickable and you go to that hot link. Yes, there's ways of doing that, but it's a little bit more difficult. You can find the solutions on YouTube. I have used it. I just am not as satisfied with it. There is an EPUB program. Most of the time you can get them for 1 or 2 or 3 time use, and they'll convert your .docx into a .epub. That electronic publication is what is really and truly. They used to use .mobi for Kindle way back when. No longer. If you have that, don't worry about it. It's already in the system, but don't put anything in new with .mobi. But that EPUB is the format you need for your ebook. And on the cover of the ebook, it's one page only, just the cover, and it has to be a JPEG. And if it doesn't pass because of the number of pixels going north, south, and east, west, it's going to tell you. Let's go to the next page. I think it's the last one. Yes. Okay, so here we go, wrapping up things here today. Other concerns in publishing in general, I was going to have a little session here where we actually look at the author count, but I think we're going to do that next week. We'll start out with that right away. Amazon gives you an ISBN for your book, but if you want an audio book or a hardcover book, or you want a book on Barnes & Noble in addition to Amazon, you're going to have different ISBNs. Bowker.com, BOWKER, will sell you ISBNs. Amazon will give you one free ISBN for your paperback only. Ebooks do not require ISBNs, but if you're starting to sell a lot of ebooks and you're selling them on different sites besides Amazon, besides Kindle, you may want to invest in ISBNs for those books, because that's going to tell you where your sales are really coming from. And that's very important from that one. Intellectual property, again, we're doing all this self-publishing for free. But if you end up in a situation, somebody says, maybe you ought to use this person over here. Depending on what kind of contract you sign with somebody, if you're having your book published by someone else, even if it's self-published, the contract's going to say that intellectual property belongs to the publisher, not to the author. So be very, very leery of that. Sometimes in the contract, it says they have the decision, not you, on what the title is, what the cover design is, and even maybe what your next book or two is going to be. There's a lot of things you want to avoid with regard to signing any contracts. If you're doing it yourself for free, that's what we're doing. We already talked about cover design, but it doesn't mean you can't come back out 2 months from now and says, let me change the colors on my cover. Let me do a couple things differently. If your book is not selling as well as you would, change the cover. It doesn't take you any amount of time to go into your author account, come back up, design a new cover, and boom. Maybe at that point in time, you've made some money off your book and you actually get somebody to design a really nice cover for you. No big deal. Just go back in there and update the book. Future books, again, what you learn on this one is what you can do for the future. So I wish you the very, very best of luck in anything that's going on. I think we're back to wrapping things up right now, Dr. Jacqueline. I say we've gone a couple minutes over, and I appreciate your hospitality and allowing me to do that.
Fabulous. You're helping so many people with this information, Red. I really have the utmost respect for you doing that. And we have a comment from another dear friend, Mr. Roland Friedel, who is literally rolling through Europe in his RV. He writes, always a pleasure to listen to Red. Happy Easter.
Happy Easter to you, Roland.
Thank you, Roland. Red, that was really a lot of great information, valuable content. And as you are well aware, you're my book coach and I've been working with you. And yet I just learned something else from this presentation. So keep sharing.
You always say that. Am I telling you enough when we're a one-on-one?
Well, it could be because I'm doing a lot of talking. So I continue to learn from you. And that's the important part of it.
Yeah, this I enjoy. Maybe you could tell my passion is in this, but I honestly really enjoy helping other people get their stuff done. If you got a question you want to ask, send me an email saying, I tried to do this, I couldn't do it. I got a phone call the other day from a friend of mine who had gotten everything in. It bounced out of Amazon, and he said, I have a problem. So I literally spent an hour with him on the phone. I said, do this first. If that doesn't work, do this. And he did. He came back the next day, says, hey, everything's fine. There's no charge for that. That's just helping a friend. So regardless, you have something and it's not working for you and you can't find the answer on YouTube, you can't find the answer in Google, nobody knows the answer, email me. If I can help you, I'll help you as best I can. If I can't, I'll give you some information and say, hey, try this and see if it works.
And there we have your information. And I know you always love to give your email address as well. So let's just add that right now. You want to add the red.olaughlin? Yes,
you can reach me at my website, red.olaughlin.com. Red like the color, R-E-D, Olaughlin, O-L-A-U-G-H-L-I-N. Red.olaughlin.com. You can reach me at red@red.olaughlin.com or red.olaughlin@gmail.com. I was going to tell you a funny story that I was in the doctor's office and lady was looking at my last name and thought I was Nigerian. I said, absolutely, the Yoruba tribe, because 90% of the people who live there, their last name starts with O-L-A or O-L-O, and she never recognized it. Of course, we're white and she's black from Nigeria, And she happened to be a member of that particular tribe, but she'd never seen my name before, didn't realize it was Irish because of the apostrophe in it. But my phlebotomist several years ago came out looking for a black couple because they were supposed to get in, get blood for an annual physical. And it was only us sitting out there, and she was kind of startled. So I asked her why. And I thought I was looking for a Nigerian couple, so OLA, like Akeem Olajuwon, OLA in the last name. So anyway, OLAUGHLAN, and I'm Irish.
You might be surprised to know that my broadcast engineer let us know that we have people listening on our new radio channel. They're listening from Nigeria.
Fantastic. I'm so glad to hear that. That is so neat. And I again, this is a life story. It's happened to me 2 different times, 2 different medical offices. And I just find it to be, it's not funny. It's just interesting because it is what it is. And you have this OLA, it's probably you walk out there and my goodness, it's not. So anyway.
Always great information to share. Thank you, Red. Well, I'm going to ask you, you're going to be showing people the KDP author account as well.
That was my plan today, but I guess I chewed off more than I could. And I was talking not as fast as I could. I realized I was talking fast, but I had a lot of material that I thought was extremely important for people to know. And so the more you know, the better job you can do, or the easier you can make it on yourself. But yes,
Absolutely.
We will definitely get into the author account next week. What I may end up doing is taking and putting that into a slideshow where I can show people exactly what happens, and I can actually go into the account at the beginning, say, here's where the account is. This is what you do. Let's take a look at each of the categories in there. So I may be able to do that in a slideshow and show people exactly what needs to happen. So that might be the best way to do that. And if I can wrap it up, I think I'd probably do the post-publishing in about 10 minutes. So let me challenge myself to make that happen all in the next episode.
Or you can do 2 episodes. We're not going anywhere.
Well, I'll have to talk to the owner of USA Global TV and Radio about that.
All right, you know where to find her.
I do. And until we see each other again, which will be very soon.
Yes.
You have a great and happy Easter, and I look forward to our next conversation.
Thank you. I do too. Happy Easter to you as well. See you soon. Bye, Red. Oh, he's such a wonderful person. I am just truly blessed. The people on our team are just so forthright and giving and so knowledgeable and experienced. It's absolutely a pleasure. If you would like to watch this episode again, please go over to our YouTube channel, which is usaglobaltv.com, and you'll be able to find it in our playlist. The playlist is Talking Heads 2022. So take a look there for all of our experts and their presentations. All of our shows are divided into playlists to make it easy for you to be able to find us. And we would love if you would subscribe to us on our YouTube channel, usaglobaltv.com. All right, the only announcements I have are that we have so many new shows that are going to be starting in May. It's extremely exciting. I have some major announcements to make, but I'm going to wait until after the Easter holiday. It's all good news. And I just thank you for being a part of this platform. Please help us spread the word around the world. Tell people what you're watching, what you're listening to that you really love here at USA Global TV, and let other people know that they're welcome to be interviewed on our platform as well. You just go to our website. You know what it is, usaglobaltv.com, and go to book your session. All right, thank you so much. That's our last show for today. If you're listening on the radio, which I did provide how you can do that, you can go either to the App Store and download My Tuner Radio app, or to the website MyTuner, MyTuner-radio.com, and you can actually listen to our shows 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Amazing. All right. Thank you again. I'll see you tomorrow. We've got a full schedule tomorrow as well. You have a great evening, a great morning, great afternoon, wherever you are. God bless you, and happy Easter to all.